Worm.
Come, my lady. Come, my lady. You're my sugar. You're
my butterfly.
Sugar, baby. You're my butterfly.
Holy shit. We finally did it. We're here.
We're further into Worm.
We're like
a third.
Yeah, chapters wise, we're a third.
Yeah.
Content wise, I think we're like a sixth, maybe.
Yeah.
Something like that.
But yeah. Welcome back to Read Weens. It's been a bit.
It's been a minute.
We've been busy. I've been busy. I was like, we gotta postpone for the 3 people listening to Read Weens. It's like, I feel like a fourth of who listens to Screen Weens, like the 12 people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Those 12 are important people.
We got like 3 that listen to Read Weens. So hello, everyone.
Hi.
We're gonna talk about a web serial that none of you have probably read,
unless you listened to our previous podcast, which you should have.
But even then, like you still haven't read it. But you should. Worm's pretty interesting. It's very long, but yeah, we read parts 6 to 10.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's man. Worm got really good and really interesting in this section, in my opinion. I think a lot of cool stuff happened, because, like... Okay, well, I guess, do we want to go in order, or are we just going to hop around and just, like, jump right into it?
Let's just talk about the broad strokes of what happened. So, basic premise of Worm from the last time. There's this girl. She goes through a traumatic event where she awakens bug powers, where she can control insects around her. And so she wants to become a superhero, so she decides to play, deep spy for a group of, supervillains known as the Undertakers? Undersiders. And she's planning on turning them into, this guy called the Arms Master.
Everything you're gonna get, almost right, but the second half, you're just gonna be like...
Yes. So, she's like, alright, yeah, Arms Master, I'm gonna, feed you information. But then she ends up developing... Who's this fucking guy? I don't know. But she ends up developing a big crush on a guy named Brian, who is also known as Gru from Despicable
That's the funny man!
Yes.
Apparently that's a reference to... What was that a reference?
I don't know.
The thing we were talking about last time. What is it?
I don't know. I'll pull up the wiki, because I know a bunch of spoilers already, so I'm fine with diving into the wiki.
But, yeah, so she basically is like, I don't know if I want to. And she starts, forming friendships within the group, and she sees that all the heroes are kind of assholes. So she's like, maybe I won't betray them. And basically, they get into the middle of, this big fight. There's some villains that they fight. They're not, super relevant in the chunk that we read today, though.
Yeah, well, that was pretty much the end of the last chunk we read.
Yeah.
That was 5, right? Because I got until halfway through 7 last time. I kept reading, and I reread most of what I had read, but I still remembered most of 6. So
6 picks up the battle that 5 kind of was wrapping up.
Oh yeah, that fight.
And then I think the second half of 6 through 7 is introducing Coil, who is the secret boss of the Undersiders. And he's got basically he's pulling a Punk Hazard where he's given this girl with superpowers candies that are laced with
some sort of drug.
Yeah, some sort of very highly addictive drug. So she'll go with withdrawals if she tries to run away or anything. And she has a probability power, and he's got
Yo, can we talk about how fucking sick Coil's power is? I think it's dope.
That was part of what I read months ago. I barely remember what.
So the way they immediately introduce it is Coil's thing is that he manipulates probability and chances and whatnot. And that's like what we're led to believe. And then later on, it's revealed that's not exactly what he does. What he does is he splits reality at a certain choice, where there are two forms of him existing. And then he just chooses which one he wants.
Oh, yeah.
So he's able to manipulate probability in that aspect. He used an example of like giving all the members of the Undersiders a coin, and everyone flipped it and all landed on heads. So he just made a bunch of realities side by side by side until everyone was heads, and then just chose that reality to be the real one for him. It's wild. I love it. I think it's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the way that, in general, I like the way that powers are described and written in this. I think Coils is definitely an interesting one, because he can always have two realities open.
Yeah, it really reminds me of like a JoJo villain's power.
Oh, absolutely.
It's kind of similar to a specific one.
There's a lot of characters that I was reminded how much I like their powers. I really like the way that Skitter changes how she uses her power in this chunk. She gets a lot more like aggressive and smart with them. I really like how Clock Blocker uses his powers.
Yep.
How he will freeze paper in time, so then he can just start running up the paper. There's a lot of really cool stuff.
But the main part of this story, like kind of like the crown jewel for this segment, is the fight with Leviathan. So in Worm, there's a group of really powerful parahumans called Endbringers. And all of the Endbringers are like walking disasters. Like, they just wreck shit everywhere they go, and it's not like no one can stop them. They can only keep them at bay for so long. And that's kind of like what a majority of, at least this for me, was like centered around. Because there's a very clear, okay, everything before Leviathan and then everything after Leviathan. There's a lot of shit happening after Leviathan.
Yeah.
So Leviathan's whole thing is he controls water. And not just like, haha, waterbender. More like, I'm going to dump the entire Pacific Ocean on you. And he moves so fast that he creates an afterimage that does it twice. Which is just kind of scary. While I was reading, this guy is insane. There's a lot of crazy superhero villains and whatnot. And even in the story, he's not necessarily a villain. Maybe no one really understands what the Endbringers are.
Yeah, though if they're even conscious of their decisions too, or are they just creatures that move around
and just do shit?
Yeah, I think that definitely the big thing in this is the Endbringer fight, which is all of 8, I think.
It's pretty much the entirety of 8.
And then the after effects of that, which are 9, and then
some of 10.
Well, 10, yeah. And yeah, I think, and then kind of just leading up to that, there's a lot of stuff with Coil, and then Skitter decides to leave the team because of that drug thing. Mm-hmm. And then as she's leaving, Leviathan shows up. She's like, nope, gotta do this. And then right after that, her teammates find out everything because of a mishap at the hospital, pretty much. And then we get an interlude arc where we get
Coil, just Coil's day-to-day, basically.
Well, no, I mean the interlude arc where we get to see through the eyes of the wards, which are pretty much the opposite of the Undersiders. They're the same kind of age, but they're the hero team, pretty much.
Hero.
And then 10 is all about, Skitter's no, I'm all in, let's fucking do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I liked pretty much all of this. I think I like this segment more than 1 through 5. I like the Endbringer stuff. I really think this series at that point, at that moment, is okay, we've got to know our characters. I've introduced a bunch of characters. I'm going to show that I'm not afraid to murder people because the writer kills off a huge chunk of heroes in the city and actively destroys a huge chunk of the city and wants you to live with those consequences. Because a bunch of the chapters after that are just talking about...
He killed off Menja! But there's only Fenja left!
Yeah. I actually was I was pretty sure that they were just going to kill off one of the Undersiders, too.
I'm very surprised that they didn't. Like, the most damage they sustained was a bunch of bitches' dogs, or Rachel or Hellhound's dogs. Like, they died, because even, like, the best villain, or best of the heroes and the villains tried to fight Leviathan. They just couldn't. They were only saved because of Scion, which, man, Scion's just kind of cool. I like him as, like, a concept because he's similar-ish to the Endbringers in that, like, he just kind of does shit. No one really knows if he's, like, making decisions. He's the focal point of, not necessarily, like, a whole, like, chapter per se, but they mention him in, like, the Ward's arc, where they're, like, taking a class and they talk about signs. Like, he might be the first, and if he's the first, where the fuck did he come from?
Yeah, he's, like, the first, like, documented case.
Yeah. And they talk about that in the first, like, the first chapter. I remember that. And, yeah, that was an interesting arc because they talk about how, like, people are still on... Because powers have only been around for 30 years at that point.
Which is... I thought it was a bit longer than 30 years. That's insane.
Well, what's interesting is, you know, like, you look at a concept like My Hero, the powers are awakened, but they, you know, you're born with them. Like, they are, like, in your genetics, while in a story like Worm, anyone can get them, like, later on. You just have to have, like, an activation thing. So there are older people with them, but they don't always have them. So I think that's also... introduces some cool ideas if they introduce some older characters who, like, remember when they
Taylor's dad is going to become a villain. Oh, yeah, that was also part of the show. The whole, like, Rachel and her dad thing.
Yeah, Taylor and her dad.
Taylor and her dad, have
a falling out. Which pretty much most of 1 through 5, and then it comes to a head in, like, 7.
7 or 6. It's like right when all the information is, like, dumped about Coil, and Taylor's just like, I don't know what I need to do, and her dad, like, traps her in her house and is like, I'm not going to hurt you. You've been legitimately scaring me, and I just want to know what's going on. Yeah. And Taylor, like, freaks out because her entire world is falling apart, which, like, man, I love that entire conversation a lot because it shows just, like, the actual consequences for what, like, Taylor has been doing. And, like, I keep saying Rachel and Taylor, I don't know why. And Taylor's dad he's just a nice man. He just cares for his daughter. That's it. That's all he wants. Like, I don't fully agree with locking someone up in their own home, but I understand why he had to do it. You know, he just wants an answer, just wants to know what's going on. Hell, at this point in the story, we don't really know, like, what's going on with him, if he's even still around.
Yeah. I must say, this might be controversial amongst the field.
Go for it.
I didn't like Arc 8.
You didn't like the Leviathan fight?
No, and I don't really like the trajectory it took. Because, like, the way I viewed it, arcs 1 through 5 and 6 and 7, like, they were all, like, building up to something, and it felt like it was finally coming up to a head. And then just out of fucking nowhere, it's like, Leviathan, let's forget all that. We're gonna be a team again. We're gonna, like, kind of shuffle around, change the status quo, but just barely. And maybe the status quo will be different from, like, 11 on, because I admit they did just get back together.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. In terms of the amount that we read for this episode, I didn't care much for it.
I'd say that's fair.
There's definitely cool things about it. Like, I'm not going to say, like, I was devoid of entertainment while I was going through it or anything. But, like, in terms of, like, the overall grand picture.
I feel that.
No, I think I'm kind of sitting in between the two of you in the sense that I would agree with you mostly. I was excited to see what it was going with that. And if it changes, like, theoretically, they could still do the things they were building up to in 11 and onward. We didn't, like, read enough. It'll just
kick down the road, which is kind of annoying.
Yeah, but I did like the fight enough. I liked some of that. But overall, I like what it did to, like, the world in general. I like what it did to Brockton Bay. I think it did a significant amount of, like, interesting things for me. So, like, I agree with kind of both of you. I was, I'm kind of in the middle on it. There are parts of 8 that I really like, but And I don't know, like, in general, it just kind of didn't go the directions I was interested in. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it just depends where it goes from here. It's kind of hard to tell, like, what I would think of the story until I finish it, which will be in, like, 4 years, I guess.
Yeah.
And then we can read the sequel.
Yeah, and then, obviously, I'm on, like, the opposite end of you. I definitely see your criticism and think that's totally valid. I think they're going to do stuff with it, but I really like the idea that just out of nowhere, like, this was just a threat that was always looming, and there's a weird thread of like, oh yeah, the Endbringer was coming here, one, because there's just a lot of conflict in Brockton Bay, and that's theorized as to why the Endbringers target their locations because we don't know if they actually, like, choose or they just kind of follow stuff, but also, like, the probability kid, Dina, I think is her name, Dinah? Dinah. Like, there's also, like, a weird, like, he might have been drawn to them, because they were, like, very, very close to their location. It's just like, oh, there's something else happening here.
I don't think, they weren't close to Dinah. They were close to...
Or just Coil's headquarters in general, right?
Yeah, they were going at, they were really close to the Traveler's companion that Coil was keeping.
But even so, like, I think... I don't know, I feel like Skitter was definitely, like, on her own for a majority, or separated from the Undersiders for basically the entire fight, and then
when everyone were all kind of separate.
Yeah, they were all kind of separate, and then when they had a chance to get together, like, the shit hit the fan massively, because everyone spilled everyone's beans. Like, fucking Armsmaster doing the whole, like, I'm gonna make you, like, just a statistic while I fight God, and, like, nearly win.
Yeah.
Almost. And then being like, yo, you're not supposed to do that. Like, we all are on the same page when Endbringers are involved, which is, like, like, I think it introduces a whole lot of just, like, really cool world building of, like, it doesn't matter which side you're on. When the Endbringers are around, everyone loses. And if you take advantage of that, there are dire consequences. Oh, also, is this the part where they introduce the birdcage? This is the section where they introduce Birdcage.
Yes, I think that's like six.
The Birdcage is sick. So, to fill in everybody, because I'm so excited about it, the Birdcage is sick! So, it's this hollowed out mountain. And inside the mountain, there's a cage. There's a cage that's suspended in it. And it's constructed in such a way that, sure, you can try to break out, but the space between the mountain and the cage is a perfect vacuum. And there are, like, interdimensional, like, drones that will just shoot you on command. And even if you, like, break through the barriers of the birdcage, like, it's constructed in such a way that it just blows you out and then seals up behind it. So it's like, sure, you can try to escape, you are going to die. And the creator of the birdcage, when they were bringing some people in, I think it was Bakuda and
Canary and Lung.
Yeah, Canary and Lung. The creator is like, okay, here are your probabilities for getting out of the birdcage, and it's like 0.00000 like 6% chance. And he just goes, good luck, have fun, bye bye. And there's a lot of just cool stuff happening.
Yeah,
and that makes me really excited because I'm like this like started to pay off a lot of the early things going on, especially like. With 10, the reveal that one of the wards is Sophia, which is basically the sole person who triggered Taylor's powers to awaken.
One of two.
Her and her friendship with Emma is Taylor's childhood friend.
And just, like, flipping that whole relationship on its head of, like, well, Taylor knows that's Sophia, but Sophia doesn't know that that's Taylor-ish.
I think, like... There are characters and things that I just think, like, they might get a redemptive arc, or they might get things that make me interested in them, but they're just fucking annoying to, like, read about.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same way that, like, I'm, like, when I watch My Hero or whatever, like, Bakugo is just fucking annoying to me. The same thing goes for Bitch in this, or Hellhound, or Rachel, or whoever you want to call. I think, in general... Rachel is just really annoying to read.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I would say the same thing with Sophia.
She's definitely
we only really get one chapter that we read from her perspective, because the other one is from her perspective in Regent's perspective.
Yeah.
And I thought that one was super interesting to say the least.
She's definitely over the top. I was not expecting them to, like, full commit that Sophia is just the worst all of the time.
Yeah, no, I think they're definitely pushing her towards being like a villain.
It's very funny that like because Regent has this thing where he's a master, so he can like manipulate people. He can like, if he spends enough time with them, he can pretty much take over their body for a bit, or like for decent chunks of time. And he does that to Shadow Stalker, who's Sophia, and they try to get into the PRH like headquarters, the ward's headquarters, to steal a bunch of data. And Weld, who is the newest like leader of the wards,
I like Weld.
Weld has some interesting stuff.
He just wants to help people.
But he's like, right before Shadowstalker had left, she had like pushed and like she had hurt Vista, who was like this 13-year-old on the team, and Regent is onto the game where Weld is like trying to figure out if like it's actually Shadowstalker. But even in Regent's mind, he's like, in his mind, he's like, it could have been a clock blocker or it could have been Kid Win. Yep. But in his mind, it doesn't even go to Vista because like, yeah, this person's not horrible enough to just punch a child.
Yeah.
So even a Regent who's a murderer who can control people's bodies, he's like, no, that's too mean.
Yeah,
I definitely like what Sophia like, not necessarily represents or brings, but like what she causes Taylor to have to do. She causes Taylor to make weird, interesting decisions. I definitely agree. I think reading her is definitely like over the top. Like there's the whole scene where she's calling with Emma, and she's just, like, poor shaming the entire time. And I'm just like, okay, it's a little much. Just a little bit much.
What were you saying?
I totally cut you off.
I was literally just gonna say, like, yeah, she's an interesting function as a plot device, but...
Yeah. Apart from that, she's kind of meh. She definitely causes interesting things to happen, though.
Mm-hmm. But... yeah, basically Regent, like, takes over her body for, like, that arc, and then we get an interlude afterwards that's, like...
I didn't read the interlude.
You didn't?
You didn't read 10's interlude? The final part of 10?
No.
I feel cheated. Well, there's two interludes. The first one is Regent controlling
the one at the end of
Sophia.
10. I got to the interlude, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop.
So you didn't get the one where Regent controls Sophia the whole time?
No, we read through 10, right?
Yeah, but there's a bonus so there's an interlude where basically, like, after Regent has supposedly stopped controlling Sophia, he controls her more, and he basically is like, I'm just gonna fucking, like, go through your phone, read the private conversations, I'm gonna go to your house, reveal your identity
Emma and
to your
say
family.
that I'm in love with you.
Oh.
And then
and then he's like, and now I'm gonna make you kill yourself.
Yeah, he writes like a suicide note, burns pictures of like Emma's
But then he's
face.
like, nah, I'm just fucking with you. But if you do it again, I will do this. Why didn't you finish 10?
Yeah.
That'd be funny.
You thought it'd be funny.
And then
I just didn't because I'm like, ugh.
Then we have an interlude with Dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you read that one?
I did.
You read the interlude with Dragon?
Yeah.
But you didn't read the other interlude?
Yeah.
Why'd you skip the one?
You said we were ready, and I was reading.
You said you'd be done today.
I was planning on it. My lunch was short today.
You had until 1.
And?
Okay.
I'm really good at procrastinating, as you can tell. Or really bad, depending on how you want to view it.
Worm.
Where's
the worms?
Where's the worms?
10 arcs in. No worms.
0
out of 10.
I'm ready for the worm, guys.
And see, like, I was telling you guys before we started, but there's a lot of cool shit happening now, and then, like, it gets fucking weird and crazy. Also, I'm glad that there's finally, like, the rolls and numbers things, because I knew about that for a while. And I was just like, when are they introducing that? I'm like, host Leviathan, because it's kind of like JoJo stat charts almost, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of cool stuff, like, specifically with the Tinkers. Tinkers are really, really cool. Because their whole deal is they're like the engineers, but they specialize exactly in one area. And then you kind of just, like, branch out slightly around that. And there's a bunch of cool stuff about them that I don't want to spoil, but they're really, really interesting.
But,
Worm. I really like this series so far.
Any more, like, corners to cover with this one?
She confesses to Gru.
Oh yeah, that plot line just like kind of started and then ended immediately with like a whimper.
And then Leviathan showed up.
Yeah, Leviathan showed up.
Shows up right in the middle of it and kind of sends that and the rails.
As they're trying to, one of the big things that just happened right at the end is Bitch betrays Skitter and tries to get her killed.
Yep.
But Skitter gets out because Dragon lets her out pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And then she is like, I will break your jaw if you ever do it again. Skitter's like becoming, stronger and more agile. And
I guess she
also
did
there was that
shit out of the first time too.
Also, there was that whole thing where she's like, "Yeah, I had my bees soak their stingers in capsaicin."
Oh yeah.
And then when they sting you, it's like you're also getting pepper sprayed. I went
on the inside.
On the inside, I'm like, oh.
It's like I will just sting you until you throw up. Pretty much.
Which is, it seems to be.
I mean, that's from the very beginning. She's like, I made my bees attack lungs ball sack.
Yeah.
But this is just like the next step up. Like, she just like learned. She's like, oh yeah, that does work. This makes it more powerful. To
be fair, certain situations I could probably see for that.
Yeah.
Although, on average, probably should.
Again, like,
go that extra
and I keep
mile.
viewing this in like this weird perspective because when I first heard about this, my friends always pitched it to me as like, yeah, a girl who controls bugs becomes the most powerful person in the world. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And I'm like, okay, she's really resourceful, but I still don't get how she like becomes one of the most powerful people in the world. I don't know where that point is.
I assume it's going to be like, kind of like, how there's like that theory that it's like, the universe is on the turtle's back.
Oh, yeah.
I assume there's a worm that lives inside the world.
Yeah,
that's what I'm guessing.
Like
I'm guessing the worm is a worm in the world.
I think I know the answer, but I'm not going to say anything.
Thank you.
What was I gonna say? Also, in like the first arc or whatever, she talks about how she controls crabs, and I'm sad she hasn't like started riding around on like a throne of crabs yet.
That'd be good. That'd be good.
That or maybe she'll find some like giant deep sea crabs.
Well, I think it just seems like she's getting more powerful with her powers, so I'm like, maybe she just starts being able to control everything.
And she'll probably be like, what's that thing? I think it's in the first chunk that we read that they mentioned. It's like that.
The principle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck. I know exactly what you're talking about, but essentially there's like a upper limit that you would have to surpass on your powers, or like there's just a hard limit. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, that one hero was like training for it.
Oh god. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, and knowing how the power system works, I'm like kind of connecting dots. With, like, her being able to control crabs and whatnot. Because, like I said, like, Tinkers specifically specialize in an area, and then they kind of branch out a little bit there, but still directly related to it. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of like, things are starting to make somewhat sense. Things are starting to make more sense to me of, like, how the power system works. I'm like, this power system's really fucking cool. I really like the power system.
Yeah. Yeah,
in general, I think, like, there are some issues I have with some of the characters, and like I do think sometimes it takes a turn I wasn't really wanting, but overall I've been really enjoying Worm, and I do really like the world building, and I really like the powers. I think a lot of the powers are extremely creative, especially in comparison to like most superhero media like now, and it's just nice because this was written like
a decade ago,
11 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it took to write, but like around this,
like over the course of like 2 years, I think.
Man, 2 years? That's it?
Something like that.
That can't be right.
No, it was written over like 2-3 years, maybe.
That man needs to go to the hospital.
And then he's written a bunch of supplemental works as well.
Yeah, I hear that because I looked up a couple times, like looking to see if he was ever like working on like a print of Worm or like breaking it down into a smaller book series.
Yeah, he said he's kind of doing...
There's some stuff in the works, supposedly.
Yeah. I heard that he might be making like some small changes to it as he does that too.
Yeah.
Apparently he's been going through and editing, like, just kind of in general.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then I tried to like look out and see like, is there like anyone talking about this beyond like the wiki page and like the comment? Yeah, there's that, but not a whole lot. Like
It's weird because it did have like hundreds of thousands of readers at one point. And now I think it's just like, yep, nobody's talking about Worm.
Yeah, which is...
I guess until he makes his next stuff. He made like Ward and like Resurged, and then when he makes more.
That, or maybe if he announces like an actual publication, like print thing.
Definitely, like I can see like...
It's just so many books.
Yeah, it'd be so many. It's so big.
But, what's it called? Yeah. It's so many books, but I think once it does and it has like a chance to be like released out into the main stratosphere and have some more credibility other than being like a web novel.
Yeah, I definitely, I think so. Because I'd love to see this like grow into something
like a
big.
TV series or something.
Or a TV series, or even like a comic run or something, because I think this would probably work really well as a comic.
Oh yeah,
you'd probably have to change a bit, but like I think it'd work really well. I just want to see some of the fights like just
functionality,
just want to see it like visually.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's never gonna match up to like what I read. Like God, the fight between Leviathan and Armsmaster, I'm like, this is fucking sick, dude.
Yeah,
this is just wild. It's just like the best parts of like every anime fight.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, nah, he's got the taunting, he's got like moves for days, he's got weapons for days, he's just like outplaying and outthinking. I'm like, this is a great beatdown that's happening. I loved every second of reading that part of the fight. It was so good.
It was pretty good. That was probably my favorite part of Arc 8.
Yeah. I'm kind of... I think we've covered everything. I've kind of gushed about all I want to gush about.
Yeah. Alright, I guess,
Oh, I guess there's a new teammate on the Undersider's Imp.
Oh, yeah.
Who's like...
Taylor always forgets about her, so do I. What?
That's her power.
It is?
Yeah.
I thought it was a fire thing.
I think they're also, because people have, but I'm pretty sure Imp's power is like, because Taylor also says like, it feels like if you're trying to like think about them, their power is like, you will forget about them.
Oh.
Like, and that's why they were saying like, maybe she won't be able to track me when they're talking about the fight with Dragon, because like, I think if you just like, she gets out of your frame if you forget about her.
Okay. I see.
Which I think there's an X-Man like that too.
I don't know.
Yes, there is. I can't remember his name, but I remember that everyone would forget about him as soon as he was out of the frame of view. And Professor X had to give himself a mind reminder to remind him who he was.
Mind reminder.
There's that doctor who, like, alien race.
The
Silence or whatever they're called.
Something like that.
I don't remember. Do we give, like, thumbs up? Or
Yeah.
It was just recommendations.
Yeah, here we go. Boom, boom. I would recommend this.
Yeah, no, if you were still, like, kind of on the edge through the first few parts, I think it definitely hits its strides with this chunk. Especially, it gives you a real good, like, taste of, like...
Mega Man.
Thank you.
A really good taste of, like, what it has to offer after it's gotten done with all of its setup. I think this is great. Please read it. Talk about it. This is amazing. I love it.
I don't think I'm as high on this as Joe.
That's fair.
But I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I've been enjoying it. I think I might be a little higher than Thomas.
Probably.
But I like it.
Yeah. No, I like it. I agree with a lot of the points. I think, like, just talking about Worm as a whole at this point, not just the parts we read today. I definitely think it does do things pretty interesting compared to a lot of other superhero media out there, which is super refreshing. And I think that if you generally you like superhero stuff and you're looking for something a bit different, check out Worm.
For someone that's like not afraid to level an entire city 8 parts into a 30-part series as just like oh yeah, that's gonna happen. And people are gonna die and there are big consequences for that.
We forgot to mention the prediction. Probability
that everyone will die.
Yes.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah, so there's some sort of end event happening that will happen. The current catalyst is going to be someone from the Slaughterhouse 9, which we also didn't talk about because they were like briefly mentioned.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see them. They're just like
They're just
mass murderers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they become relevant.
Oh, also, Coil's master plan to take over Brockton Bay for, like, from the shadows and be, like, the perfect puppet master.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yep, classic.
So yeah, we'll probably talk about more Worm in like 6 months.
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thomas, what are we reading?
So we're going to be reading 2 books. One is called The Last Wish. The other is called The Sword of Destiny.
Those are both Witcher books.
Yeah, they are...
we're starting The Witcher. Fun.
Yeah, The Witcher. So the way that The Witcher works is that there's like a series that has 5 entries and there's 3 short story collections.
Yeah.
2 of the short story collections take place before the series. And The Last Wish was technically written after The Sword of Destiny, but it takes place before. And the stories are kind of like out of order in that one.
Yeah. I my only experience with The Witcher is I watched the first season on Netflix of the live action. So, like, I understand, like, the stories are kind of told in different, like, not linear ways.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're going to be reading those 2.
Cool.
Yep.
Righteous.
Read Worm.
Read Worm.
Read Worm.
Read
And
Worm,
also-
read Witcher.
Tell your grandma.
Last Wish, Sword of Destiny. Is that the right one?
Mhm.
Okay. Got it. See you guys next month, or maybe in 3 months. Okay,
We
bye.
might die.